Now, let me tell you about how being a language major fucked me up big time. Now, it's not exactly about how poor the career prospects are for English majors, though that's a different conversation on its own. But it's more of how miserable I've become due to overthinking and overanalyzing. No thanks to my training. It's like taking the red pill in the Matrix. Once you have your eyes open, there's no one seeing things or going back. As language majors, we do have an extensive background in linguistics and communication theory. That means we're taught to systematically analyze language use and communicative situations. For the most part, the processes involved in how we make sense of things and how we can carry on conversations are somehow innate to us. Plenty of things are actually going on when we communicate, but we go through these processes and decisions subconsciously. Not for me, though. I'm very, very conscious. For instance, when you tell or ask me something, here's what goes through my mind. First, I process what I think you meant. Okay. My mind essentially goes through a bunch of heuristics, questions. And I process each guided by a particular theory or lens. To start, I ask, what did your utterance mean? What do your words connote and denote? What presuppositions, implicatures, and pragmatic loads did your utterance contain? What do I think you were trying to do or accomplish by telling or asking me something or engaging me in conversation in the first place? What is the context of the situation we are in? Are you being a willing participant in the conversation? What motivations or agenda, whether political, economical, or cultural, do I think you have? And, these things, these are just part of the linguistic considerations. Due to some exposure in semiotics and psychology, as language majors, we're also encouraged to consider nonverbal cues. Like, what other meanings and messages might you be communicating through gestures, postures, facial tics, and expressions? Now, after trying to interpret what you meant by what you said, only then do I decide how to respond. And I consider several things as well, like what social-cultural elements are in play. Are we from the same culture? Should I reply based on what's customary? Like, what are the power dynamics that influence us? I consider if we are on the same power position, or perhaps one of us wields a bit more power over the other, such as in the case of, work hierarchy, seniority, age, gender, these things. What personal motivations or agenda do I have? Like, what do I want to achieve in this situation? Do I even want to extend this conversation with you? Do I even like you in the first place? Do I want to help you or hurt you? Yeah, those things come into play. And only after considering all of those points would I decide on my message and how I will say it. I finally compose my response and I choose the grammatical structures to convey my message. Decisions like what language, dialect, or register do I use? Do I use Filipino, English, or Taglish? Do I use a formal style or an informal or casual style? Do I use highly technical language or a simpler one? Which phrase and sentence structures would embody my message best? Like, do I use the active voice or passive voice? Other things like, what words do I actually use? Do I need to apply transformational rules and play around with sentence patterns to communicate things like politeness, humor, or sarcasm? What tone do I take? And going through all of that takes a lot of work. Well, there are pros and cons to doing this. For one, it helps you become a more strategic communicator. And admittedly, it makes me even manipulative at times because I could try to strategize on how best to communicate things to achieve what I want from the situation. So, for example, if someone asks me,
Oy pre, kumusta? Kumain ka na?
Here's how I'll process it.
Anong tanong niya? Kumain. Oo, kumain na ako kanina. Kaso, medyo nagugutom na din ako. Ano mang ibig niya sabihin? Gusto lang kaya niya malaman kung kumain na ako? O nag-o-offer kaya siya ng pagkain? O magyayahang kumain kung saan? Teka, sino ba to? Matagal na kaming hindi nakita pero pagkain ka agad natanong. May dala ba siyang pagkain? Wala naman siyang bitbit. Nasaan ba kami ngayon? Malayo naman kami sa bahay nila. Kaya malamang hindi magyaya itong kumain sa kanila. May mga malapit kayang kainan? Mura ba o mahal na resto? At hindi naman talaga kami friends. Tsaka may pagka-user ito ng college eh. Kung kakain kami baka ako pa man libre. O baka kaya mag-o-offer ng MLM. Kung insurance sana baka pwede pa. Post ng post ito sa crypto sa Facebook eh. Baka i-pyramid pa ako sa Bitcoin. Tayo na wag na lang.
Uy, Long time no see. Eto, okay lang. Oo pre, kumain na ako eh. Nice seeing you ah. Kita-kits na lang sa FB.
The problem now lies is because of all of that, I have a tendency to do that with every goddamn conversation I have, regardless of who the people I'm with. And this can extend to all the other instances where language use can be found, which is basically, almost everything in daily life. Whether I'm browsing social media, watching movies, listening to songs, taking a look at product labels, shopping online, browsing reviews, you name it. Well, if there's language use involved, I have a tendency to overthink and overanalyze and be overly critical about these things. So nothing's ever simple and innocent and pure anymore. And that just sucks the life out of things most of the time. And that's why taking a language degree turned me into such the miserable bastard that I am today.